Good evening. Excuse the technical difficulties. My name is Ebony Knight. I am the National Director of the Normal Women's Alliance. I also work as the Vice President of Alchemy Artisan Incorporated, which is a youth nonprofit, youth advocacy work that I do here in Atlanta. I'm here to answer any questions you have. I also do political comedy where I basically take issues that some people might not want to address and I talk about them. Kind of make it funny, but I figure if you can make people laugh, then you can get their attention. And although they may not agree with me or even agree with the way that I deliver it, they might think about it later. So that's what I do. Hi, Vincent. As I was speaking about alchemy, that Vincent just came on. He is the founder of Alchemy Artisan Inc. And I am excited about the work that we're doing here in Atlanta. Hey. Thank you for having me. Thank you for having me. Can you see me? It looks really blurry. So my work with the Normal Women's Alliance, I wouldn't say recently, but I kind of am new to being the national director or wearing that hat. So what I do is basically I'm kind of taking it from ground level and rebuilding the infrastructure of the Normal Women's Alliance and kind of doing a model here in Atlanta. We do have some things coming up next month, and oh, you can see me. Awesome. So we have some events coming up next month around Mother's Day and forecasting some things for September to do at the Capitol concerning youth and concerning cannabis decriminalization or descheduling, as well as it being used as medicine here in Georgia. So yeah, that's one of the things I do. I'm also a mother. I'm a mother of 6, hence the cannabis consumption. I do work a lot with my kids. I used to homeschool, but I don't anymore. It is definitely for the brave and the strong to homeschool as many children as I have. I've been a part of the Normal Women's Alliance since 2007. Shout out to Diane Formbacher. She kind of brought me into normal as by way of Philly Normal, and she just always pushed me, and she saw me as a leader, even though I was like, I'm just here to work behind the scenes. She always pushed me to the front, and I really appreciate her for that. Any other questions? Aisha, I know you asked me before about the event that we recently had on 420, the Women in Cannabis event. It was actually very nice. At first I was thinking a panel on 420, and I was like, not quite sure how the turnout would be, but it was a full house and it was a wonderful event. The panel was by myself, Mama Juana as another advocate, and then we had some people come from Colorado. We had some doctors on the panel as well. So we had a full plethora of, advocates as well as people who are in the industry. I do travel a lot. Vincent can attest to that. Every time we try to have a meeting, I'm leaving the state or the country. I do travel a lot. I have the opportunity to travel to not just smoke weed, but to travel and to meet with people who are also in the organization or who are in other organizations. And I do a lot on the road. So I just within the last year, I went to Colorado. I went to Seattle. A lot of jet lag. I'm not quite sure where else I've been, but yeah, I get to go around to a lot of different places. What do you mean by women in cannabis? African American women, we are a growing population within the cannabis industry. I think we have found a place where it's a new industry, so it's not already male dominated and already white man dominated, maybe, but there is definitely space for us. And I have definitely seen a lot of women step up to the plate and take their place within the industry. Even in Denver, Colorado, there is a dispensary owned by a black woman. Her name escapes me. And then in San Francisco, one of our colleagues just got a license for a dispensary. So we are definitely making movements and making waves and kicking up dust and growing within this industry. And as far as me, I don't have a cannabis business, but I do work with people who do. I am a brand manager. I help people build their cannabis business and their brands. And one thing that I do know is that this is something that I teach my children. This is an industry that there is no age limit to where they can come in and have a business. So I encourage my children to be involved in it. This is something that I do. And because I'm not ashamed of it, I believe in this. I also teach my children. Oh, what made me get involved in the cannabis industry? So a lot of people have, these stories of they were arrested or their family member was arrested and it messed up their lives. And I don't have that story. I come from a religious background. My parents were pastors. Prior to that, my dad was a Black Panther. So I was always raised to care about people and to try to build people and to build community. That being said, I'm an ordained minister, and I believe that weed works. It worked for me, and every time that I would try to stop using cannabis, it would still come back into my life. That's another story. One day I was in New Jersey and I was looking at these different meetup groups, and there was a meetup group for NORML, and I'd never heard of NORML, having spent about 15 years in Vidalia, Georgia. So NORML is the National Organization for the Reform of Marijuana Laws, and I was like, hey, these people think that weed should be legal. I think marijuana should be legal too. So I just decided to go to the meeting. And when I went to the meeting, I was really surprised that I was the only Black person there. For some reason, I thought that we were the ones who wanted weed to be legal because we were the ones who were being criminalized by it. But when I got there, there were just a lot of attorneys, mostly attorneys. There were other, people there as well. But so that's how I got into it. And once I got there, they were like, hey, Ebony, why aren't more Black people involved in this? Because for the same reason that I thought that we were the ones holding the meeting. And there are so many reasons why Black people are involved in, the fight to legalize marijuana. And that's a book within itself. But I do have the pleasure of kind of doing some cross-cultural communication and, letting them know kind of where we come from. And I've seen, the industry expand. I've seen the movement expand, and a lot more African Americans are involved now. And that's a great thing. You can get involved in the business by finding your niche. Whatever you do, there's room for it. Like a lot of people they talk about touching the plant, quote unquote, but there's so much, ancillary business around cannabis. If you have a construction company here in Georgia, although it's not legal, you're preparing yourself to kind of get your foot into the door. You would prepare your construction company to, know the standards for building a dispensary or building a grow. And if you do marketing, you just kind of tailor your services to the cannabis industry. So I don't advise people to just kind of jump somewhere where they have no experience. But if you want to, do what you want. But my advice is that whatever you're already into, whatever you love to do, find something to do within that vein. I'm an advocate on CBD hemp also. Yes, that is correct. I'm an advocate of freedom. So it's a plant. If it's a plant and it grows, I feel like it shouldn't be illegal. So I advocate freedom. An unpopular train of thought that I also hold is I advocate for the decriminalization of all drugs, based on the studies that have been done in countries where they have decriminalized drugs, and they use those funds instead of locking people up. They use those funds for healthcare. And I believe that it is a human right to choose what you want to do. And it's not the government's right to criminalize you. Sure. The difference between cannabis and hemp is hemp has a lower amount of and almost no THC in it. So that's why hemp is more, it has become legal in more states recently, even in southern states like Alabama and Florida. Hemp is being grown now. No, it's not expensive to start a cannabis business. I mean, a cannabis business could be cookies. So you get a little bit of oil, or if you're making your own oil, you get a little bit of flowers and you make your cookies and you sell them. So it just depends on where you want to start and how you start. Oh, Vincent, how close are we to legalization here in Georgia? That's an interesting question. So we do have municipalities that have decriminalized for under an ounce. Atlanta, Savannah, Carrollton, some other places, but a few places that have decriminalized. I think that is a huge step in knocking down the walls of prohibition of cannabis in Georgia. And the more places that we can get, to say the people of this city have said, we do not want to lock up plant users anymore. The more the more we can get our governing officials to listen to what we have to say, then, it will begin to spread, because it will give, the surrounding places a model. It will set the precedent that says that, okay, everybody didn't become zombies and stoners when we decriminalize marijuana within our district. So I think, we are not as close as we want to be, but we're closer than we were when we first met 5-6 years ago. Yes, we definitely need a huge voice from every age group. We need a huge voice from every walk of life. We need a voice from our clergy. We need a voice from our medical professionals. We need a voice from our legal professionals. Definitely need a voice. Georgia is getting on, but Georgia's legislators have not quite all gotten on board yet. But we do have people who are doing so much more than when I first started working with Peachtree Normal back in 2012. At that time, they just laughed at us at the Capitol. Now we have people who are actually writing legislation and listening to us and saying, I agree and I'll sponsor that bill. So that's a great thing. Any other questions? Yeah, fake news. As far as psychosis, cannabis does not cause psychosis. The doctors that I have spoken with, and I've spoken with several, they do recommend. Many of the doctors that I've spoken with, they recommend that certain age groups not begin to use cannabis too early, because then there is a chance of psychosis. Because of the formation of the brain, teenagers at certain ages should not use it. However, those same doctors will recommend cannabis to a 2-year-old who's, having seizures or something like that. So it's definitely based on the person. Yes, so I am an author and a publisher as well. I published my first book, The Weapon of Dance, in 2010 or 2005. Yeah, time is passing. So I'm an artist and a dancer, and part of the work that I do with youth is teaching the arts. And so I traveled the world and I kind of saw how dance was used as a powerful weapon for healing. And I've used dance to heal myself, and it's dance therapy, just like there's music therapy. And so I wrote a book called The Weapon of Dance, and right now I'm working on volume 2, where it's more of a global perspective of how dance has been used. And I also write for Skunk Magazine, so going from dance back to weed, and I've written for legal journals as well. I definitely encourage everybody to write, whether it's just for personal use or, if you want to write, if you have a book inside of you, just begin to write. Yes, because medicine, for anything, any type of pharmaceuticals, it usually seems like the side effect is making that issue worse, exacerbating the issue. So if you have depression, your antidepressants are going to make you depressed or suicidal. So those are the games that Big Pharma plays. Cannabis has never let me down. And 22 meds is a lot. Anyway, it seems like they were trying to make you more suicidal. My books can be found online, and if you reach out to me just via DM, I can get a copy to you. Ooh, the first time I got in activism. Okay, like I said, my dad is a Black Panther, so I grew up in activism. I grew up with a list on my refrigerator that talked about that listed all of the companies that participated in apartheid. And Vincent knows I still don't go to Shell gas station today. I can't really say the first time that I got into activism because it's definitely been a part of my life for a long time. I went to a private school and I had the opportunity to travel internationally as an artist, but the art that we did, because it was a Christian school, it was like outreach. So although I'm not a Christian anymore, I get to use that same model on the youth that I work with now, and I think it's an awesome thing. Now, my children, I started them out young as well. The first time they, kind of went to the Capitol or went to a courthouse was for the New Jersey Weed Man's trial, the first day of his trial years ago. And they all had signs, and some of them said community, and one of them said family, and things like that. So, just kind of getting them out there. They've also participated in marches and rallies. So I think it's really important for it to be a lifestyle and just not something, that you do haphazardly. Okay. Nevada's made $30 million in tax revenue during the first 6 months of sale. Why wouldn't every state want to take advantage? Because we have to show Georgia how they're still going to make money. Georgia's making plenty money off of the prison system. They're not worried about, sales of marijuana are going to boost our economy. We have to really show them the bottom line of how they're still going to make money, even though they're going to have to end slavery in 2018. Thank you. Trust me, I was on time. No, yeah, Aisha, I have 6 kids. I'm sure I probably was late. And Vincent wasn't driving me. I'm not a doctor. I'm a mother. I do have children who eat edibles, and I do have children who don't need any edibles. I have some right now that I would like to give a vape pen to, but I'm just not doing it quite yet. I've had doctors recommend, in Philadelphia, I would say I was the gray market because I didn't really have to be black market because Philadelphia has decriminalized marijuana. They have legal weed. You can go to a doctor, get a recommendation. The only problem is there's still red tape. So you can't actually take that recommendation and go into a dispensary and get what you need. So the doctors would recommend their patients to me, and I would, then assist them with getting the access that they needed to whatever it was. I say all that to say that I had patients as young as 1 year old that, that a doctor contacted me about because I think he had brain cancer and was just wondering what we could do, if anything, because you're not going to roll him a joint. He can't do a vape pen. So, it's definitely depends on what you're using cannabis for. Because it's definitely medicine. It's much more than, just getting high. Yes, you you probably need to visit home. Philly is a weed garden. I mean, that's your choice. I do not possess any CBD on my person. I have only THC because that's what I need. And Dr. Uma Donabalan, she always tells people, you need THC, not just CBD. You need THC. Everybody's favorite book, The Coldest Winter Ever. Yeah, I love The Coldest Winter Ever, but that's just pretty much my answer from being a teenager. I don't know. I read a lot of books, but I do love that book. Okay, yeah. So you stick to CBD. You stick to CBD. I'm not following much of what Trump is doing at all because, like you said, first he was for it, then he was against it. Like, he's all over the place. That whole administration, I thought we were going to be picking cotton personally, especially when Sessions came into office. I said, oh, Lord, we all going to be picking cotton now. So I would think that Trump would be more for it because he is a businessman. However, it's not always a logical decision from our lawmakers. Oh, my favorite book I wrote, I would say, is the one that I'm working on now. It's Raising Rebels, and it's basically a story about my children, being a mom within the legalization of marijuana and kind of being a free thinker and raising free thinking children, and kind of how that's a struggle, but a blessing at the same time. I can't see the end of your question, Vince. Do I think we will see legalization? Hope so. You can take a look at normal.org, and you can also, the Normal Women's Alliance also has a webpage, and it's the normalwomen'salliance.org. And you can check us out at our meetings. Peachtree Normal has meetings on, I think, every fourth Thursday or Tuesday. You can check them out on Facebook. And the Normal Women's Alliance's meetings will begin on the fourth Thursday of June. And you can ask me any questions. Feel free to contact me on Facebook or Instagram. No, I do not think we will see some type of retroactive law freeing low-level weed offenders, because we haven't seen many things be retroactive and anything be fixed in states where, can. I do have the support of my dad. My mom recently told me she's proud of me. I was wondering But my dad has supported me from the beginning, and I think that's awesome for him to be able to, say that I don't really understand what you're doing, but I respect it, and I know that if you're doing it, then you're doing it for a reason. And I think that was also a point of growth for me to just stand up and you stand for what I believe in, because that's how my parents raised me, is to stand up and for what you believe in, even if no one else stands with you. Correct. Awesome. And my children also support me. I love to take them to events. I was going to take my 14-year-old to the Capitol on Friday, 420, but she had other plans at school. But I do get them involved, and I like to take one to some place and take another one somewhere else, just so that they can be a part of what I'm doing as well. Ooh, well, I've always written poetry, like since I was about 9 or 10. I started doing comedy in 2011. So that I've performed in New York City. Here in Atlanta, I've performed at Apache and some different cannabis events. What do you mean? What is my favorite piece? Spoken word? I don't have one. I just kind of like the flow. I think in another life I might have been a rapper because I'm a lyricist and things just kind of flow out of me, but I don't have a favorite piece. Israel. Israel is they have a lot of research coming out of Israel because they've had access to be able to do research for such a long time. So I would definitely say Israel. Yes, I am familiar with the Cannabis Church or the First Church of Cannabis or something like that. And I actually met some people from there while I was in Washington, D.C. I personally, because I don't really subscribe to any type of religion, I don't need a church to tell me that, cannabis is good for me. But I think it's great for people who, feel like they do. Yes, yes. Decriminalizing and legalizing, also descheduling, because right now cannabis is a Schedule 1 drug, which you may or may not know, that's the same as cocaine, and it's not even scheduled right, and I think that it needs to be descheduled altogether, not even rescheduled. Because descheduled means that it has no medicinal value and it has a high risk of addiction. So, but we do know that it has medicinal value. We have plenty of states saying that it does. We have plenty of people saying that it does. And then we have a federal cannabis program where we have citizens. LV Musica is one of them who receive their cannabis from the government once a month. So every month she receives pre-rolled joints from the federal government who says that cannabis has no medicinal value, and people are still being locked up for it. If you don't have any more questions, I'm going to go be a mom. If you do, I'll wait a few more minutes. The different strains of cannabis. Whew. There are thousands of strains of cannabis. Okay, so different types of cannabis are sativa, I'm high. Sativa, indica, or you could have a hybrid. Within those different kinds, there are thousands of strains. People are still making strains. You can grow your own strain. It's science. There are different strains that are used for different things. And I mean, I definitely believe in medical marijuana. At first, it was always quote unquote medical marijuana to me because it's all medicine. But just from traveling and speaking with patients and learning about their ailments and learning about how they, are healing themselves with cannabis, I know that, it's not all the same. So what one plant can do for you, for your inflammation, another plant wouldn't do that. Or what one plant, helps with insomnia, another one might give you more energy and make you stay up. I do. And I think moms are a strong voice within the cannabis movement because, number one, we are caregivers. So when our children get sick, and I mean, especially the children that I've, come across in working with patients, when children get sick and moms who don't even consume cannabis at all, like they're not stoners or potheads or anything, they're straight laced soccer moms, but they find out that we can help their children and then they become activists out, just by default because they wanted to take care of their children. Moms are a great voice because once we learn that, okay, this helps me be a better mom, I'm not actually going to slap a kid the hell out, then we know, okay, well, this is going to help me. If I drink, that may not be what I'm looking for. Drinking isn't for everybody. Cannabis may not be for everybody, but it should be an option that everyone has. Yes, definitely. I went to a conference with let's see, I've been to so many conferences. It wasn't Drug Policy Alliance. It was somewhere in DC, but they just had all the research that has been done in Israel, and it was amazing. I mean, they have, years worth of research. So for the government to say that there is no research showing it, it's only because you have it as a Schedule 1 and won't let us do the research. However, the research is there. Yes, the strains do have different levels of THC. Yes, I have tried different strains. I've tried lots and lots of strains. Like you could have mid, you could have what they call loud, or you could have different variations of, it could be green, it might be purple, it might be kind of orange colored. Like cannabis comes in, so it's a flower, but comes in so many different strains and THC levels. Like I was speaking of LV Musica before, she is a federal patient and gets her cannabis from the government. One time she received her cannabis, and after she smoked a few joints, she wasn't getting any better. And so she had to send her weed back to the government, and they tested it and they confirmed that it was not the right strain. It wasn't the right level of THC in it. So yeah, every strain is not the same. Moms can get involved in a number of ways. There is a group called Moms United. So in the war on prohibition, you can get involved in that way. The Normal Women's Alliance, we do things, because many of us are mothers. That's another way to get involved, and just however you want to get involved. So, I mean, if you're a mom, talk to your children. That's a great way to get involved. And a lot of people overlook that step because that's kind of an uncomfortable conversation for some people. But that's a wonderful way to get involved. It depends on what they had. So it might be possession. It might be possession with intent to distribute. It just depends in the state of Georgia. In the city of Atlanta, a lot of people are under the assumption that weed is legal in Atlanta. That is false. They did pass a measure to decriminalize under an ounce, 28 grams. However, it is up to the officer's discretion. So good luck. Just be careful, because the officer could say, hey, I want to be an ass today, and that's their discretion. And so just remember that you still are in the state of Georgia, and they still, like, cops are trained to look and to smell for marijuana. My youngest child is 7. My oldest is 19. And my 19-year-old moved out, and then when she came back, she was using cannabis. So I'm just lucky, and I'm glad to say that I did not get her started smoking weed. And she is old enough to make that decision on her own, and she has 2 jobs, so that's fine with me. And I had the same talk with her that you are in Georgia, and you know that building your life, people are still drug testing. Although we do not want to pee in a cup, for certain jobs you have to. So if you want to be successful, are you going to be willing to play the game that they have set up for you and pass that drug test and, you know, build your life that way? Why would I tell you my plans? No, I'm just joking. Right now, I'm just working on building the Abnormal Women's Alliance. As far as the cannabis industry goes, I do have some irons in the fire and just small fires that I'm kind of building. And I am also working on a Women of Cannabis comedy show, just to highlight how funny we are as women. And just to highlight, you know, just to tell true stories that we live every day, and to change the perception of cannabis users, to change the perception of me just being a stoner mom, and to tell my story as well. I don't know how Kentucky beat Georgia. It's scary, it's sad, but it's Georgia. Yeah, Georgia is really slow in a lot of ways. Yes, there are plenty of opportunities to be a public speaker in cannabis. Plenty paid opportunities, not so much, but there are some. I actually have had to turn down a few public speaking engagements because they're all over the place, and if they can't really pay for me to get there, my budget only the way my budget is set up, I can only afford to take myself so many places to speak for free. Yeah, Kentucky. One thing about Georgia, when I began to work here in 2012, there was a handful of people from Peachtree Normal along with myself, and I was the only black person at the Capitol. This past 420, I was in a room full of African American people who are ready to work for cannabis to be legal, and they're ready to get into the industry, and they're not taking no for an answer. So I'm really encouraged that, you know, we're going to get the work done, because that's what it is. It's calling, making calls to your legislators. It's going there. It's being there. It's being a rebel. So like, somebody has to be willing to roll up and smoke out. I am. Somebody got my bail money. They already told me they do. I know y'all going to take care of me. So we all are here to do what we're here to do. Everybody's not going to be on the front line. Everybody's not going to be at the press conference, but in some way you can definitely be involved or just show your support. Yeah, we're going to keep hope alive for Georgia. The decrim measures in, the different municipalities is definitely a start. That is progress, and we're not going to knock progress because I hadn't even heard of normal when I lived in Georgia years ago. So, definitely. I mean, living in Vidalia, Georgia, I had never heard of an organization that wanted to decriminalize marijuana. So when I heard of normal, I was like, oh, wow. And now there are thousands of organizations who are, working alongside normal or just working on their own to make their voices heard that, we agree that this plant is medicine. At this point, there is not anything set up, and I think that there should be. First of all, like Vincent mentioned, I think there needs to be some retroactive work done, and that the people who are in prison for a plant need to be out. And then just like, whatever, this is a right that we have. If inmates can start a business, then they need to fight to have that right. I did see progress in Colorado. I didn't see a lot of black people in Colorado, but I saw progress in Colorado. A lot of people that I talk to in places where it is legal, like in Seattle, Washington, they are so angry because they have so many issues with their decrim. Their policies are now there's so much red tape and just so many kinks in the policies. So I think that Georgia is going to be a little better off because we can learn from those places because they're crash dummies. Yes, it's going well, but how can we learn from them? What was written in the legislation that should not have been, or what was left out that gave our legislators a loophole to then go back and close it? So we have to definitely, learn from them and move Georgia forward and free the weed. Yes. Yeah, because the prison system is slavery. So they're not in a hurry to end slavery in any shape or form. They just continue to change the face of it. Definitely. And studies do prove and show that children with all different types of ailments could benefit from oil. Definitely. Just from the children that I've encountered who, may have autism, and just a lot of physical diseases where cannabis really helps them, where they stop having seizures because of the plant, where they now can eat and gain weight instead of just not having any appetite because of cannabis. Well, in closing, my name is Ebony Knight. Yeah, definitely for seizures. My name is Ebony Knight. You can find me on Facebook at Fans of Ebony Knight, or at Twitter at The Ebony Knight, and The Ebony Knight on IG as well. I encourage you to call your congressman. And I encourage you to vote for me for Congress because it's time to send the good old boys home, and I'm going to be running for office. No more drug war. And I look forward to meeting you. I will be in a few places Yeah, I'll be in a few places within the next 2 months. You can check out my fan page. I'm going to be putting my itinerary there, so you can catch me there. And I'd love to come to your event if you're having one and I'm available. I would definitely love to come and meet you. Thank you so much to the Chit Chat Show for having me. It's been so great. I am honored to have spent this hour with you. Excuse the technical difficulties that we had in the beginning. And once again, my name is Ebony Knight. Thank you and have a great evening.